multiple sclerosis. And it's there's a couple of things I wanted to tell you before we get started. Well, there's a couple of facts. Some of you are familiar with the term PTSD. So that means post-traumatic stress disorder, and this is a book that looks at violence and post-traumatic stress disorder. Another part of the brain that I'll be talking about is called the Corpus Callosum, which is the bridge between hemispheres of the brain. And it's actually, like, in the actual book there are MRI brain scans, so you can see what I'm talking about. But there's this little arc in the brain that connects the two hemispheres that I'll be referencing when I read. And I want to just tell you a little bit about the book. My publisher is here today, John Crawford. You want to put a hand? The book is also blessed and graced to have illustrations by Chris Mills, and she's also here today. That really helps me out a lot, because it's an intense work for me, and so to have it cushioned in art is very beautiful. When I first wrote these poems, I performed them as a one-woman show, and this is where Bryan Konefsky became involved, because he made videos that went between each segment of the show. And so today, when I'm reading, we're going to be looking at the videos that he made for the one-woman show at the same time. And there are 4 short videos. They each kind of correlate loosely to different sections of the book, although I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a merger. I've tried very hard to get my timing down on them for what I'm going to read with them. I will tell you, as I said, I want to give you, I don't know, I have my way of interpreting these films, which I don't know, Bryan and I have never explicitly talked about it, but I consider them films with lesions. So I think, you know, they kind of mimic the brain process a little bit. So I think with that, I think I'll be ready to start. Let me actually move. Yeah. In 2003, I threatened to hold up the MRI clinic. I went to the ER and told them my legs had been numb for 5 weeks. They told me to eat mandarin oranges. They told me to eat mandarin oranges and then shrugged, as if legs didn't matter. So I threatened to hold up the MRI clinic. Self-preservation is instinct. I needed to know what was going on. I needed to know what to do. I knew legs matter. Sometimes logic prevails. So I got my hands on an old sawed-off shotgun, and I threatened to hold up the MRI clinic. You want to know where the shotgun came from? It came from my knee. This was a weapon birthed from patella and ligament. Hard hitting Mythborn the day I decided I would not leave a man's hands wrapped around my windpipe. It took years to get around to defending myself. It took less than a minute without oxygen, as if my head had been forced underwater in the river Styx, fish swimming by, a baptism into adrenaline, fast riddle of flesh. This time, the answer was a leg. I rammed my knee into the soft tissues of his belly and forced that man's body from mine. Like that, I was breathing again, and only the sky was blue. I get tired of the onslaught. One man threw a blanket over my head. If he hadn't been shoving his knee into my crotch and his tongue into my mouth, I would have gone to sleep. It's so old, the harassment. When I have insomnia, I can't count how many times I've been followed or stalked or felt up or groped or slapped or flashed or propositioned or catcalled or had a gun pulled on me. No, I can count that. Once. Once a man pulled a pistol out and began gesticulating at me. I knew him, and although I wasn't entirely sure what he had in his hands, it looked like a .22 caliber bluff. He wanted to sleep with me. 10 minutes before, he'd made me feel his bicep, told me how hard it was to resist punching doors. I ran. It was beautiful not getting shot. At the ER, I told them I used to be a runner. I was good. I didn't mention what I'd run from. I just told them that 5 weeks prior I'd been hiking 6 miles a day, and then I told them crossing my kitchen should not feel like crossing the Rubicon. In almost everything, there's one cutting differentiation. I was not the predator. You salvage what you can from the razor edge of memory. Remember, violence is systemic. I am not the only woman combing through the dregs to cull a life that can be called thriving. Survival is just the beginning. Violence does funny things to the brain, and the brain manhandles memory. Picture a red crest of everything at once. Silence makes it swell. Speech makes it abate a bit. Language offers the possibility of putting things in their places, forefront, back burner. You have to deal with trauma before you can let it go the way of the past. You have to hold the culture accountable. So, I ended up sitting with a Brazilian 12 gauge at my kitchen table. It had a mahogany stock, was a single shot with takedown action, and had a purfling metal design that reminded me of the engravings on musical instruments. The barrel and butt were sawed off. The whole thing would fit up a sleeve. I made a decision. The week before, I had gone to the ER. I took my Medicaid card and my mother and went quietly and calmly. I went prepared to play dumb. The same psychiatrist who thought my IQ was at the root of all my problems had coached me to roll over with medical doctors. It seemed playing dumb was requisite to being a good patient. And I knew I had to be a good patient if I wanted to get treatment, so I signed in, and when they called me, I recited my symptoms as if I were reading text from the side of a cereal box. I didn't feel the need to wave my arms around. These were serious symptoms. It was unfortunate that I had to answer all the other questions, the one that would plant seeds of doubt in the doctors' minds. Are you allergic to any medications? I am only allergic to medications which prove something is organically wrong with my brain and my ability to present symptoms to you. What medications do you take? I only take medications designed to alter a faulty brain, one predisposed to moods and obsessions, a brain which, if left unmedicated, would make presentation of physical symptoms difficult. Oh, and you should know, my insurance is based on poverty, which gives you the right to make all kinds of assumptions. Actually, the nurse paid attention to my symptoms, noted the medications I was on and what I couldn't take, and then left to meet with the doctor overseeing intake. 10 minutes later, the nurse returned saying, "You're going to need a lot of tests. We want you to stay here and be seen in the ER. Okay, I said. The picture of compliance, a woman who could barely walk across the ER saying, okay. Of course, that was just the holding tank phase of the game. When my name was called, I heard it like a siren song from beyond the ambulance bay. It was irresistible. It was a trap. I went anyways, and they set me up in a curtained room. I waited a little calmer, figuring this should go smoothly. It didn't. Ultimately, the nurse said, "Your blood sugar has dropped so low, I'm going to get you some mandarin oranges, and I want you to eat them before you try to leave. And here is the number to call to get a referral. Wait a week to give them a call, and then they'll review your file and see if you need an appointment. And if you do, they'll schedule it within a few months." Did you say you want me to eat mandarin oranges? By the time my mom took me home, I was beyond despondent. This was it. Without steroids to waylay the flare, I was facing permanent damage, some or other degree of disability. So much for hiking, so much for living alone, so much for my plans of going back to work. Soon the handicap placard was coming to my car. Already I needed it, but wanted to consider my situation temporary. With treatment, I might be able to walk again. So, I threatened to hold up the MRI clinic. Self-preservation is instinct, even for the intake nurse, so my threat got sawed off, much like the Brazilian 12 gauge that is still in my closet. Here's what you need to know. It was a hack job. I got locked up. I got locked up and drugged with antipsychotics. The ward was a blessing. The ward was a prayer. After 24 hours, I was on my knees wailing, begging for an MRI. The ward was a risk. I didn't have the gun anymore. The shotgun was never even loaded with anything but metaphors. I needed a neurologist to look at my brain and check for lesions, so I said, here is my backbone. Today it is made of tropical wood and steel and capable of blowing a black hole in your skull. I shot off my mouth and meant it to be enough. Nonetheless, the on-call neurologist was scared of me. I threatened to hold up the MRI clinic. Usually I am a gentle woman, shy even, but I'm human, animal, and I liked his fear. I could smell it. I could see it in his eyes. I could flirt with it. I'd fallen for the idea I could dominate the dialogue without even raising my voice. He ordered an MRI. Immediately, it went swimmingly. Me, stretched out in a tube, daydreaming. I already knew what they'd find. My legs had been numb for 5 weeks, and my x-rays were clean as something else going on. But right then, I didn't care. I'd gotten my way. I'd gotten my MRI. I got out of the hospital after almost a month, when I was moon-faced and bloated from steroids, when I could feel 2 toes on each foot, when I could answer the question, will you get rid of the shotgun, with a straight face? They sent me home with a slip of paper, an outtake plan that had a list of meds and appointments with a neurologist and a physical therapist, a counselor, and a psychiatrist, and a caseworker. They sent me home with a slip of paper that said severe next to the words multiple sclerosis. 6 months later, when I recovered feeling in my legs, I met with a new neurologist. She hit me with a hammer repeatedly. One leg flew into the sky, the other did nothing, bipolar reflexes. Neither response was normal. She struck a tuning fork and put it to my shin. I was supposed to say when I couldn't feel it. Instead, my whole body started trembling. She raised her eyebrows, and then, without hesitating, she slapped my MRIs onto the light screen. I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't know anything, but I could see polka dots. I trembled again. She flipped through the films, pointing out 13, count them, 13 lesions, and then stopped. Oh, she said, you have a black hole. That's a dead lesion, one that's been inflamed repeatedly. You're not early in the disease. Then she flipped some more, stopped, pursed her lips and said, your corpus callosum is thinner than I'd like to see. And she showed me the arc, the strip of brain that connects the 2 hemispheres, the strip of brain that should have been plump. So what does that mean? That means you'll have trouble with memory. Which kind of memory, I said, trying to be calm, long-term or short? All memory. And then my new neurologist startled me. She said, which is worse, your PTSD or the MS? Doctors never believe in PTSD, never ask how I'm doing. Even the psychiatrist I saw after I was first diagnosed blew it off, preferring to call me bipolar and drug me. I wondered how PTSD had suddenly gained credibility. My corpus callosum was still lit up, a bridge between hemispheres. I thought of the flashbacks, the dissociation, the nightmares and insomnia of PTSD. I thought of numbness, tremors and spasticity and what might happen with MS. And then I realized my legs were back from their foray into abandon, my balance freshly reacquired through physical therapy. Do you mean right now? Right now, I'd have to say my PTSD is worse than the MS. That's what I said. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that after 6 months, after the diagnosis of a chronic illness, I had to admit that it was still the same old plaguing me. What had been haranguing me since childhood. My body as a rag doll, my body as a puppet on someone's hand, my body pinned and my mouth pried open and gagging, a yellow shirt, a chiaroscuro image of some shudder, yuck, a cramp, a twitch, an ache, a grief so deep it's out of body, out of sight, out of mind. Fragments, pieces, the muck, the mire, the partially remembered and mostly forgotten. Amnesia is a brick. You know it's there. You stumble on it daily, a tactile absence, an impinging void, a teeming emptiness, a rattle. I have forgotten enough to know the shape of what happened. The shape of my corpus callosum is not normal. It's belittled, diminished, lacking heft, a look of concern on my neurologist's face. I looked it up. I punched Pandora's box into the internet. Hit me, slap me, pinch me, punch a time card. The bridge between hemispheres is still being constructed in the crib. I read until I was shaking. Then I read some more. Research shows that if I were a boy, neglect could interrupt the development of the corpus callosum. Research shows that for girls, the skinny is sexual abuse. Get it? The MRI is a crime scene photo. It's proof, an unfathomable interruption. It's a confirmation of a suspicion I tried to disbelieve. Something happened. Something happened when I was little. Something happened when I threatened to hold up the MRI clinic. Picture a girl jumping into a river that will rise up over her head. Picture a girl jumping back into her own body. I expected lesions. What I got was something else.